Hello, Not Manly here, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Bob Kerman is doing his ejection burn out to Gilly, which we are playing at 4 times speed, and also cutting out a lot of stuff. This burn takes a long time, a good 2 minutes. After we get that initial burn done, we do a course correction out at the descending node. There we go, a little more. There we go. We have an encounter with Gilly. Gilly is the smallest object in the system, with a diameter of a mere 26 kilometers. You could walk from one end of this world to the other and not break a sweat. Here we go. 51 kilometers up should be more than enough. There's our correction. We should have enough delta V to get out to Gilly and get into orbit and get back. That insertion burn is going to take a while. In the meantime, one of our autonomous rovers has made its way up to Eve's peaks, and we're investigating the top of this particular plateau to see if we could use it as a potential launch site. With Bon Voyage, we might be able to assemble entire launch platforms complete with craft and then transport them out here. At 6 kilometers up, the atmosphere is only twice as thick and not as dense, so we may have a much easier time launching. And there we go. And we'll recover this craft to get the science from the peaks. Bob has just entered Gilly's sphere of influence and is getting ready for his orbit insertion, but we are in high Gilly space. Let's get the science. We've got a lot of work to do. We have got 2 crew compartments and we've got 2 experimental storage units here. We're going to try to bring back as much science as we can on this one trip. Look at that. Science, 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 and more science. Here's our insertion. It takes a good 90 seconds by itself, which we will clip right through a lot of. There we go. Just a little more we get to periapsis, and there we go. We are in orbit. Let us reduce that. Look at that orbit speed, 11 meters per second. Jeez, you get out for a brisk jog maybe and do that. There we go. Let's get all the science instruments up. Now that initial retrieval rendered these instruments inoperable. It's up to Bob to get out there and fix them and then take more readings. There we go. Bob, being a scientist, he is allowed to remove data and restore these experiments for reuse. That's why we sent up here with a lot of probe cores so that Bob can pilot these craft without being a pilot. We need his scientific expertise here. You know, for a guy who flunked out a grade 8, he does a really good job as a scientist. He says that's just because of Star Trek. There we go. As we're doing all this, we're getting world firsts. We've got the first spacewalk above Gilly. We're going to have a lot more firsts as we proceed with this mission. We're going to transmit what we can and keep what we cannot. Look at that, more world firsts. We received scientific data and we completed one of our contract parameters, which was to send back science from Gilly. Now it is time for Bob to get aboard that lander and get ready to head to the surface of Gilly. Come on, Bob, don't be shy. Don't be shy. All of Eve is watching, but that's okay. You've done this before. You've done this lots of times in practice. There we go. Even just moving from one crew compartment to another is enough to get another world first. A crew transfer above the surface of Gilly. There we go. Let us undock. We'll get the lander going. This looks like overkill for Gilly. with like hardly any gravity, but look at all the science kit we're bringing down there. We want to make sure we've got full control over this craft, and really we're not all that patient about it. It's going to take a good 2 hours just to descend to the surface. We might as well do it right. There's our deorbit burn. It's going to take us to about 4.5 kilometers up, at which point we'll be able to find a decent landing site. In the meantime, we've been busy back at Eve. We have yet another dual rescue contract. We are building our staff up and getting paid while doing it. Always the best way to do it. Whoops, let's try that again. Now there's another crew capsule here somewhere. And there we go. We got Yesbin Kerman and Yogurt Kerman debuting in the Kerbal Space Program. And with those guys safely in orbit in a rescue craft, we can now focus our attention back to Gilly and back to Bob. We are trying to find just where low space is above Gilly, and even at 6.5 kilometers up, it is still high space. I'm having to use physics warp as well because it won't let me time warp below 8,000 meters. And now we're in near space. We can quickly get all of our near space science. And there's a lot to get. We gotta get 2 copies of the Materials Bay and Mystery Goo experiments as well. That's why we brought that additional storage unit with us. We've entered suborbital spaceflight. We are over our landing spot. All of Eve is watching this with great anticipation. Bob Kerman to be the first purple to walk on the surface of another world, even if that world is only 26 kilometers wide. Now I get really lazy here. I just thrust down. You don't want to do this anywhere else, but this is Gilly. We are not going to waste a lot of time up here letting gravity do its thing. We'll just burn straight down. There we go. All of Eve is watching. The Purple Broadcasting Corporation paying special attention to this. Bob spies a flatter piece of terrain just up ahead, so he ends up thrusting toward that. There he goes. Using Kerbal Engineer to find a place with a relatively shallow slope, 2 degrees, that's quite comfortable. Even 3 degrees is okay. And we are thrusting down again because we are just being lazy about this. The suspense is just killing me here. I got this forwarded 4 times speed. Look at that. 10 meters up. Less than a meter up. Gentle, 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 gentle. All this way. We don't want to crash. Touchdown! Touchdown on the surface of Gilly. And we're in one piece. Oh, don't tip over. Turn the SAS back on and have it pointed straight up. There we go. We've got a lot of work to do, and Bob is the right purple to do that work. Look at all that juicy science. Whoa, a material study is 125 science all by itself. How much can we bring back? We'll transmit what we can. Why not? There goes Bob. The gravity is so weak on Gilly. You need a jetpack just to move around. There we go. Bob doing what Bob does best, doing all the science and out. Look at that. Don't think he's quite used to this jetpack though. Gives himself a little knock on the materials bay. We try this again. There we go. Don't worry, Bob, it's not like all of Eve isn't watching you right now. There we go, touchdown. Even surface samples will take 2 experiments each. And now, after all this waiting, it is time to plant our flag. Please rise for the singing of our national anthem. And there we go. With the important flag planting ceremony finished, Bob gets aboard, loads up the experiments he's taken up with him. Oh, do we have to get one more surface sample? I think we do. Yeah, let's go get that quickly and then we'll move on. Gilly has 3 biomes. We're going to try to get all 3 biomes on this trip. Look at that. We have 900 meters per second delta V, which is overkill for Gilly. Meanwhile, word of the first landing on Gilly has gotten back to Eve. Yespin and Yogurt Kerman coming back safe after that momentous landing back on Gilly, and with our crews safe back on Eve's surface. Bob heads up to another biome. We just head up this hill here to see if we can quickly get to the Midlands and the Highlands, and it turns out that Bob's instinct was correct. Just going up the hill already got us from the lowlands to the Midlands. Once again, a quick thrust down because who has the patience for gravity? There we go. Look at that slope though. Oh my goodness. 27 degrees slope, 26, 25. That's going to make landing interesting. Let's try this again. There we go. Still 26 degrees. Good thing the SAS system can help keep this craft upright, otherwise we'd be having a bad time here. There we go. Fast forward. Oh, look at the steepness of that hill. Come on, Bob. Come on, Bob. Touchdown on the Midlands. Now, the probe will keep it upright, but you gotta hurry, Bob, or you're gonna find yourself sliding off this hill. Get those experiments up. Come on. And you know what? We've already seen this happen once before. Let's just play through this at 4 times speed. Here we go. We're getting 2 copies of the goo, service, materials bay, and surface samples. We're getting 1 copy of everything else. In and out, in and out, in and out. There we go. Now we're done in the Midlands. It is further up the hill to get to the Highlands. We've just landed on the Highlands. Look at that. Another crazy slope. Better move, Bob, before the craft moves on you. And there we go. We're all lined up. And there we go. We're going to find some flatter ground to land on for a little bit here while we do some housekeeping. We're going to go through all of our list of experiments, make sure we got 1 copy of everything and 2 copies of the experiments that need 2 copies. After going over all of that, we go back up to the craft up in orbit. We turn on KerbNet, see if we can't find any strange things on the surface of Gilly while we're up here. Doesn't look like there's anything unusual up here so far. Just a big old brown ball of nothing. But hey, at least we know that for right now. We'll be back here eventually though. In the meantime, Bob's taken inventory of everything. He's got what he needs, and now he's just going to thrust directly to the command craft. Again, Gilly's gravity is just so weak. Who has time for home and transfer maneuvers and rendezvous and all of that? Let's just get up there. Although we do try a quick plane change, make sure we get ourselves lined up. There we go. Who has time for home and transfers? Just go straight up. And here's Bob rendezvousing with his command craft. Gonna redock, unload all of our science. and then we will bring the command craft home. Just like before, all we got to do is point the noses of these craft at each other and then thrust gently, and eventually they will dock. Just like that. Alright, Bob. Time to finish the job. Time to unload all that science and bring it over to the command craft. There we go. We'll start with the contents of that lander can. Bring it over to the command pod. There we go. Now for the experimental storage unit. Get everything out of there and put it into your other unit. These experimental storage units are absolutely perfect for some of the non-repeatable experiments. They're perfect. You can bring extra copies of experiments with you, which you could not do before. We're going to transfer our excess fuel that we don't need. I don't know why we brought up 10 units, 15 monopropellant units. I don't know why we bothered bringing that up. That was just a waste of mass. So we're just going to leave it in orbit above Gilly so we can return home with a lighter craft. At the same time, we'll take any excess fuel from the lander, put it back in our command craft, so we'll have a little more Delta V for getting home safe. There we go, all separated out. Now, I just do a maneuver just to get out of Gilly's sphere of influence. I'm not sure how to return home to Eve from up here just yet, so let's just get outside of Gilly's sphere of influence and we can figure it out from there. Just getting out there takes a little while. Once we're out there though, I do a maneuver that is not just retrograde but also radial in a bit. I try to make the return trip a little quicker. There we go, periapsis to 32K. Just like our high Eve rescues, we think Bob will be fine returning from there. There's just one little problem here that we've only found out just as I was getting there. But you know what? I think I'm going to leave that as a mystery for you. We'll unveil the big going wrong in a future episode. Until then, I'm not Manly. Fly safe.